Welcome back to the Crypto World channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is starting to reject from this crucial area of resistance in the immediate short term. And this is happening while we're seeing a retest in the US stock market. Now, once again, testing this crucial area of support in the short term. But while all of this is happening for Bitcoin and stocks, we're also seeing more liquidity building just above the price of Bitcoin that we need to pay attention to. So I'll be talking about that in just a moment, alongside Ethereum, also now perfectly rejecting from this crucial area of resistance here in the short term, while the price of Solana is doing the same, rejecting from key resistance in the short term. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before taking a look at the Bitcoin and crypto charts today, taking a quick look at the US stock market today. This is the S&P 500 index on the 4-hour time frame, and right now I'm recording this video just as the US stock market has closed for the day, and we actually saw a slight little retest of this previous area of support that we have been finding support along this area for the last couple of months now, basically throughout this year so far. Since the end of 2025 onwards, this has been a crucial area of support. And then obviously over the last couple of days, we broke below the area, but then just over the last one day, once again, broke out back above the area and now retesting this area. So in the coming hours and days, especially tomorrow, of course, when the stock market opens back up again, this will be a crucial area for the S&P 500 index to actually hold in order to potentially start entering back into this previous sideways price range that we've been in basically all year long. And so obviously with that slight little pullback just recently in the stock market in the immediate short term, this is helping to cause just a slight little pullback for Bitcoin and crypto in the immediate short term. But once again, if we hold this support now in the coming days for the US stock market, then it's likely, of course, we'll start to see some sort of bounce, which means potentially some sort of little bounce or rebound for the crypto market. So keep that in mind throughout the video. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin charts today on the weekly time frame, nothing's really changed at all over the last one day. The super trend indicator still sitting in the red, and of course, we're still playing out this massive bearish divergence, technically still active. But once again, like I've been saying in recent weeks now on the channel, we've hit oversold in the weekly Bitcoin RSI for the first time since the middle of 2022. And what happened the last time we confirmed this signal on the weekly Bitcoin RSI was indeed a decent bullish relief over the next few weeks or so. Now, remember, an oversold signal by itself does not guarantee that we've hit the bottom. It is possible we can ultimately go lower later on at some stage, but just in the somewhat short to mid-term, yes, it is likely we could see some sort of little relief playing out this oversold signal. And so that is still the situation on the larger timeframes, on the weekly timeframes. And if we're taking a look at the 3-day Bitcoin price chart right now, during the much larger multi-month bearish trend, well, obviously in the short to mid-term here, we're still bouncing around in this range, bouncing between support and resistance. Obviously, I've been talking about this every day for over a month now. We have support here at $60,000, also some more support at give or take 63,000, and a lot of support down here if the price were to actually get back down there in between 53,000 to 56,000. And as for resistance, we have strong resistance starting at give or take 72,000. Really in the low to mid 70k area, we have strong resistance around there. But like I've also been saying basically every day over the last 1 month now on the channel, right now we're potentially still in a very similar situation to what we saw near the end of 2025. Of course, in the short to mid-term, in fact, for over a month in that case, we're playing out a relief, a break from all of the bearish price action in the form of mostly choppy sideways price action, but slightly leaning towards the bullish direction as we can see. Not a huge bullish reversal, but just having a bit of a break from the bearish trend, but also not confirming the end of the trend, ultimately seeing a continuation later on. So right now we're potentially still in a similar situation compared to what we saw back there. And if we're taking a look at the short-term moves here on the 4-hour Bitcoin price chart, we can clearly see the range that we've been in over the last 1 month or so, bouncing around relatively sideways on the price chart. And obviously, while we're bouncing around relatively sideways in this range, of course, we're not going in a perfect straight line sideways. We can see short-term bullish moves and short-term bearish moves, mostly bouncing from support and rejecting from resistance. And of course, over the last couple of days, we saw a perfect bounce around 1 to 2 days ago now from this exact area of support, still sitting in between 65.5k to 66,000. And just over the last 1 day, we've now actually broken out above this short-term area of resistance here, which was sitting at around 69,000 to 69.5k. Obviously, we immediately started to struggle in that area as soon as we hit that area. But then now that we've we've broken out above the area, we'll likely find a bit of support around this area. Once again, in between 69,000 to 69.5k is the immediate support to watch out for. And then if we confirm candle closes back below that area and fail to get back above that area, in that situation, obviously, we still have significant support here at 65.5k to 66,000. And as for resistance to watch out for, as I've been warning about for a long time, we have strong resistance in the low 70k area, especially around 71 to 72,000. I've not moved this area over the last one day. We've just now started to perfectly reject from this exact resistance. And so once again, expect the price to struggle in the top side of this sideways price range right here. Expect rejections from around this area on the price chart in the low 70k area. Is a very likely scenario. But then obviously if we approach the lower end of the range, especially down in the lower 60k area, low to mid 60k area, expect bounces and the price to potentially turn around in the short term around that area on the price chart, ultimately just remaining in the same range that we've been in over the last 1 month or so. And so just for example, not financial advice, but a basic example of a trading strategy to profit during all of this is simply just opening shorts at points of resistance in the higher end of the range and taking profits in the lower end, or vice versa, opening longs in the lower end of the range around points of support, and then closing those longs or taking profits around certain points of resistance as we start to struggle around those resistance or reject from those levels. So obviously not financial advice, that's just pointing out a basic example of how we can still profit during all of this price action right here while we're basically bouncing and dumping, etc., playing out a sideways price range. And remember, if the US stock market potentially tomorrow continues to hold above this support right here, and ideally if we see some sort of bounce over the next 1 to 2 days, then that's likely going to help with some sort of little bounce for Bitcoin. Potentially could soon hold this area as support. Once again, 69,000 to 69.5k is the immediate support to watch out for, where we could start to see just a slight little rebound. And it's also worth pointing out that we have some major liquidity building above the price of Bitcoin that's not yet been hit, and this liquidity is sitting at around 71.8k to 72,000. So in the high 71k area, just under 72k, we have a lot of liquidity around there. We also have a decent amount building at just above 74,000, but really the main level to focus on is around 71.8k to 72,000, which is right around here, obviously right as we're entering into this massive resistance here. And usually, as always, no guarantees, but usually the price of Bitcoin tends to move towards where we have a lot of liquidity, which does suggest that maybe in the next 1 to 2 days, the price could once again start to move back up towards around 71.8k to 72k to wipe out that liquidity right there. But remember, as we approach that area, we also have resistance. So ideally, we need to see some sort of little bounce continue in the stock market to really be a bit more confident that we're going to be taking out that liquidity here. But then obviously, once we take out that liquidity, if we ultimately hit that level at just under 72,000, obviously it's right there where I'll begin to expect the price to struggle at again, possibly even see another rejection from around that area. And so obviously I don't expect that all to play out in the next few minutes or in the next 1 hour, but maybe within the next 1 or 2 days, it's likely we could see some sort of move like that to wipe out that liquidity or get closer towards that liquidity. But obviously this is just one chart to consider. We need to be based on all of this information right here. So ideally, for example, we need to see a little more of a bounce here in the stock market. If, for example, the stock market just crashes tomorrow, then it's unlikely the price of Bitcoin will move towards that upside liquidity if we're seeing a stock market crash. So we need to see a few of these things move together to be a little more confident in the direction. But overall, it is quite likely that in the coming hours, we'll start to find support around this area, and then obviously continue to expect resistance at these areas of resistance I'm talking about. And so overall, those are my expectations, the key levels to watch out for in the shorter term, and obviously the midterm and the longer term, nothing's changed at all over the last 1 day. So obviously, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, you need to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And if you use the first link below the video in the description and in the pinned comment, the first link below this video will take you to this page right here over on the 2bit crypto exchange, which by the way is a no KYC exchange and is an exchange that I personally use myself from time to time. And simply just by using that link link below the video to 2bit, you can take advantage of a 3.5 million USDT prize pool up for grabs right here, simply just by trading crypto using that first link below the video. And on top of that, only available using that link, there's also some extra exclusive bonuses. Once again, if you don't use that link, unfortunately, you can't claim any of these bonuses right here, where you can get up to an extra 200 USDT in actual withdrawable stablecoins just simply by trading crypto. So obviously, if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. Take advantage of this. All of this right here. Once again, first link below the video to 2bit. And remember, 2bit is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin dominance chart on the daily time frame, and the imminent short-term move is ultimately a bounce, which is just undoing the previous bearish move, which was undoing the previous bullish move, etc., etc., just bouncing around relatively sideways in a bit of a range right now, which means a lot of the altcoins are still likely going to perform very similar to whatever Bitcoin is doing, not necessarily much better or much worse. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the 3-day time frame, right now the price of ETH, of course, in terms of the longer term multi-month trend, is still technically bearish, but in the short to mid-term, talking about a period of weeks, maybe even leading into 1 or 2 months, because it's already been a month now, is of course mostly neutral, but slightly leaning towards the bullish direction, somewhat similar to what we saw near the end of 2025, entering into very early this year, because we're still trying to play out this oversold signal in the 3-day Ethereum RSI, which means mostly either neutral or slight bullish price action is a very likely scenario still to come here on the 3-day time frame. And if we're taking a look at the daily time frame, ultimately this is all occurring within this sideways price range here, bouncing between support and resistance. First of all, we have strong support at just above 1.8k, more specifically around 1810 to 1820, and strong resistance starting at just above 2.1k, more specifically in between 2150 to 2250 as a strong area of resistance to watch out for. And so similar to how Bitcoin's kind of in a bit of a range in the somewhat shorter term here, obviously Ethereum is also very much in a range, bouncing between support and resistance in the shorter term during the much larger bearish trend. And if we're taking a look at the 4-hour Ethereum price chart, we're just now rejecting from this short-term resistance here, where we've seen many rejections from over the last 1 month or so, and this is sitting in between around $2,080 to 2.1k. So just underneath 2.1k, we have obviously a strong resistance right there, at least in the short term. And as for support, we could find a small amount of support at give or take $2,000, but ultimately the next important area of support here in the short term is sitting in between around 1910 to 1930. So just above 1.9k is a key area of support here in the short term. And obviously for the most part, we're basically still just in a bit of a range at the moment, bouncing around it relatively sideways, playing out short-term bullish moves and short-term bearish moves. And so not a lot has changed here for Ethereum over the last 1 day. So without wasting your time, getting straight into the price of XRP on the weekly time frame, and in terms of the longer term trend, of course, we're still technically looking bearish. We've not yet confirmed any strong reversal signals to finally put an end to the larger bearish trend. So at least for now, that's still the situation in terms of the larger or longer term trend. But in the somewhat shorter term here, we're still running into this strong support sitting in between around $1.30 to $1.40. So continue to expect support in that area. And if we're taking a look at the 3-day XRP price chart, we're also still trying to play out this oversold signal in the 3-day XRP RSI, which means expect most likely a little bit more choppy sideways price action, basically forming a sideways price range or some sort of range in the short term, very similar to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a lot of the market at the moment in the shorter term during the much larger bearish trend. So not a lot has changed here for XRP as well over the last 1 day. So getting straight into the price of Solana on the 3-day time frame, and it's a very similar situation here. So I'll keep this quick. Obviously, longer term trend technically still bearish, but short to mid term, we're taking a break from the trend, playing out mostly choppy sideways price action in a range right now. Support still sitting at around $75 to $80, and strong resistance starting at close to $95. And if we're zooming further into the short term, looking at the 4-hour Solana price chart, we have strong support right here sitting in between, once again, $75 towards around $78, so close to $80. And as for resistance, we do have some short-term resistance starting at around $88.60 to $90.70 approximately. So in that range right there, expect a decent amount of resistance, as we've seen multiple times over the last 1 month or so. And ultimately, just expect very similar price action for Solana and a lot of these altcoins here as to what Bitcoin is doing. So of course, if Bitcoin right now is playing out that rejection from this resistance, but let's just say if Bitcoin starts finding a bit of support around this area, as I mentioned earlier in the video, we'll likely see something very similar to that for a lot of these altcoins just in the shorter term here. So keep that in mind. And if we're taking a look at Chainlink on the 3-day time frame, it's a similar situation here. So I'll keep this quick. Once again, longer term multi-month trend, technically still bearish, but in the short to mid-term, talking about a period of weeks now leading into 1 to 2 months, of course, we're still in a very similar situation to what we saw near the end of 2025, which is playing out this oversold signal, playing out just a slight little relief, a bit of a break from the trend, but not necessarily confirming the end of the larger trend. So that's still the situation on the 3-day time frame. And of course, we still have strong support in between around $7.90 to $8.50 and strong resistance in between $9.50 to $10. And if we're zooming further into the short term, taking a look at the 4-hour Chainlink price chart, obviously we do have some short-term support around here sitting at around $8.60 to $8.70. We also have short-term resistance around here, which we've just run into, sitting at just above $9, around $9.10 to $9.20. And once again, like I've been saying throughout the video, expect similar performance for Chainlink and a lot of these altcoins as to what Bitcoin is doing. So obviously just follow my Bitcoin prediction here to figure out what is likely going to happen for a lot of these altcoins in the shorter term. But for the most part, still somewhat remaining in this larger range that we're in right now, that we've been in over the last 1 month or so, playing out both short-term bullish moves and short-term bearish moves. And once again, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out the links below this video to those exchanges if you want to take advantage of massive bonuses only available using those links to certain exchanges like 2bit, for example. And if you want to actually know how you can trade these moves, no matter what direction the price goes, to profit in both directions in the market, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen, because the video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions. And the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.